Morning, everybody. I think the Honorable Minister of Industry and Trade, Mr. Maru, and the rest of the, I think, distinguished guests, thank you so much for that coming to this summit. I'm working for about 6 months, visiting 22 SEZ sites by choppers and all those things. So many of you we met maybe in the region. But I think the SEZ has been talking about sometime in this country. I understand about the first idea we implemented 30 years ago. But unfortunately, that the real SEZ is not materialized yet in this country. Like maybe last night's speech by Minister Maru. This time, we cannot fail. We have to succeed. I think we find that this SEZ, most important thing is the political will, from top to the region. And we find that, of course, the only political will alone cannot materialize. I find that we need orchestration from the top Prime Minister down to the village leaders. And without this maybe orchestration, it's difficult to achieve their goal. I see orchestra has to have some theme to play. Everybody understand what the purpose of the orchestra. So first thing we need to really understand what we want playing the song, or maybe the theme of music. So from the piano, the drama, and the violins, all kinds of the orchestration from top to the bottom. That's very, very important. And what the theme we're going to play. So SEZ mainly try to bring investor to the country, to creating employment. So I think our target for the Papua New Guinea, we think we can creating about 1.6 million by 2050. 2035, we may be able to creating maybe close to the 800,000 employment. So this is the target. So all the orchestra members, from Prime Minister down to the leader of the tribes, has to understand what the music we're going to play. If everybody have different way music doesn't work. So we have to have the same goal together. So I've been working quite a long time. I have been working almost 31 countries for introducing SEZ. So I was graduating from University of Hawaii at the East-West Center. This is the kind of hub of the developing institute. And the Kennedy Center is there. So I've been studying my PhD there. And I taught about 5 years. But during those teaching, we made a study. What I can help in the developing country. My conclusion was creating employment. Because every country we visited, the lack of employment to young people. Because without employment, all social problem, something happens. So my main task in my life is creating employment by millions in the developing country. For JDI, I returned to Japan after teaching at the university. We created Japan Development Institute. This is the one to try to creating employment in the developing countries. So our target is 100 million employment creations. So far, we reached half of them in the past 40 years. Maybe we can accelerate creating employment in the developing countries. So far, almost 147 countries adopted. When we started 40 years ago, only about 20, 25 countries were using this concept. So this is a tremendous progress and a success. Because if you apply this special economic zone approach, and I came up, I call it 10 commandments to follow. You have to something to believe on. So after 40 years of experience, I came up with 10 commandments. So I can show you really what the 10 commandments is. I find that basically the investor at base, like maybe behave, like migrating birds. They migrate one place to another. And we settle where they like. Now, where we can bring the migrating birds to your countries. The best things I find is creating special enclave. So-called the industrial park, or special economic zone nowadays. So if you provide the pond for the birds will come by bunch. But if you don't creating good environment, the birds leave the country zone. We have to really work hard to accommodating them. So this is one of the very important tasks of this. So I becoming bird watcher for 45 years. So I visited almost 83 countries, but every country I visited, the most critical or maybe most scarce commodity is job, meaningful job. Because people don't have a job, what will happen in next generations? Unfortunately, Papua New Guinea have this problem. Many young people coming out from school, but difficult to find meaningful job. So I think the Minister Maru is right. This time, really seriously work on this issue because all other countries, all neighboring countries succeeded. When I was working 40 years ago in Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam even before that. So they had a very difficult situation, and the power is short, and the traffic is terrible, and many other difficulties every country faces. So I think using this SEZ concept, not changing whole country at once. We select most potential area 1, 2, 3, and creating special enclave, and focus on that 3 or 4 enclave. Put everything together, A to Z. All the power necessary, they put them. And also legal framework, we put it. So creating different country within a country. This is SEZ, basically. So you're creating, now I think the Bangladesh and Papua New Guinea doing business ranking in 120. So that means almost easy to count from bottom. So if 120 ranking, it's very difficult to attract investors. But if we can create this special enclave, bringing that the ranking up to 30, top 30, you can do that. Try to change the whole country, take 1 generation. But I think if you focus on maybe several, or maybe few of several SEZ, you can do matter 1, 2 years. So this is basically that the economic zone is all about. Now I think the official definition of the special economic zone, there are many definitions, but I think typically World Bank, UNDP, and those people come up with the definition. So special economic zone means any delimited and declared geographical area with service land and is usually physically secure of fence around in operation as an enclave. It's an enclave basically. So it has single regulatory framework. Instead of doesn't the ministry involve the operation with one single legal frame and one single administration. In the case of the Papua New Guinea is state SEZ authority, SEZs. So SEZ has absolute the power to control legally and also give the incentives in terms of the duty-free privilege and lowering the taxes. Also maybe one-stop service for the operation of the SEZ. So those special made conditions, one special within the country, can help the migrating bird to operate. So I'm watching that the birds taking off to the developing country. Early stages, 30, 40 years ago, many birds had a very difficult time because the developing country not accommodating in good facilities. Also the law and order is not well. So I find the migrating birds could be captured by the villager when they landed, and eventually some of them caught and becoming evening meal as a barbecues. It's a normal, when developing, not now we're talking about, this was 30, 40 years ago, you see. So I visited so many countries, I find the migrating birds, they caught, end up maybe barbecue in the evening. So I told them, each country, no, you can't barbecue them. Because once barbecue, the birds, they're watching around, no, this is a difficult place. So let's leave. So that happens. So without migrating birds, you cannot get eggs. Egg means basically your income and the jobs. With the job, nothing will happen to your country. So give you maybe next one picture, give you a whole story. So SEZ, basically the bird sanctuary, because of the early stages 40 years ago, it's very difficult for the migrating bird to survive. So I asked the developing country to creating bird sanctuary, protecting the birds, and instead of barbecuing them, provide necessary food and services so that the migrating birds can able to lay eggs, which you can eat. So this may be one picture put in your mind. Just SEZ is a kind of the bird sanctuary where we're going to protect them, and we can provide necessary food for them, provide necessary twig to make a nest. So that may basically, this one picture give you easy to understand the concept. And you see, if you make just a pond without services, clean water, and food and twig for the nest, they will not stay. But the nature of the birds, if you do provide all those things, they'll fly in bunch, not only one. So that we should want, bringing more birds into the country. Because once you are in a birds, they're going to provide you the income and the jobs. And so we have to provide necessary facilities. And the most important thing that the land, without the land, nothing we can do it. So here in the Papua New Guinea, you have a plenty of land, million hectares, we underutilized or never utilized. So those land, 97% belong to the tribe. And those tribal leaders will ask you to find a good land for the suitable SEZ and deliver the land, then together develop them to bring the birds. So that's the task of what we were starting. And the purpose of the SEZ are basically trying to attracting the birds and creating employment by millions. And so far we worked 30 countries, 28 countries succeeded, shifting from the very poor LDC status to the middle income or even higher middle income countries. within just less than 30 years. So it worked. But I think we need a very strong political will plus orchestration to involve from top to down, bottom, and same theme. So the SEZ can provide you the income, job, but you have to maybe bring the more birds into the country. So either maybe you can have export-oriented, but local, the domestic-oriented industry is fine. And also the transforming the economy is also very good too. Because whole country, I cannot say that you can change overnight. But 2 or 3 locations, if you focus, provide everything where the birds can survive, and make that within 2 years, you can create the best condition of the pond so the birds will come. So the main, of course, objective is attracting investment and providing job for you. But once you get a job, your children, grandchildren can carry on those skills to the next stage. I think it's the most important thing for any country, particularly developing country. You have to do it. Now regarding the type of the SEZ, nowadays so many different type of SEZ because we have hundreds of thousands of different birds. So some birds require certain conditions, and the big one is different. But I think we are looking at the more medium, smaller size the bird. The big one, like maybe mining company or maybe LNG, they can do whatever they can because their wealth and human resources they can able to cope with. But I think normal the birds, because non-resource sector, we have to take care of it. And I think maybe you can mention here 24, even more. So maybe free trade zone, export processing zone, free port zone, enterprise zone, tourism. But I think a more relevant one here is agricultural park, and also forestry park, and the industrial park. So I will go into maybe more detail of those 5 or 6 the pond which is suitable for the Papua New Guinea and also mostly used in the whole world. Okay, so next things I'd like to maybe share that the specific picture of those ponds so you can maybe imagine more easily. The first one is that the most popular SEZ is an industrial park or industrial estate. I think 80% of all the SEZ that is this type. And we've been working all the China, ASEAN countries, and also now we're working in Bangladesh this type. And in manufacturing, for attracting manufacturing is the basic thing. And secondly, suitable for this country is agricultural park, because we have plenty of millions and millions of hectares of land uncultivated, not cultivated at all sometimes. So the forestry, next one, forestry park, again, you have huge number of the forestry here, there. But I think this one has to be sustainable forest and product can be processed for the global market. That's not yet. And also free port, we have a couple of the port. You can creating free port and free trade zone. And also I recommend maybe IT park. So IT becomes so important for any country in the world. And I find that the IT park can bring all the newest technology and train the young people. And sometimes you can able to get the outsourcing. Particularly, I think India was so successful. So we work in about 20 years of IT park, and India become the largest IT sector in in the world. And also maybe recently the Philippines, Vietnam, capturing those IT sector. So I just give you very closely. The next one, okay. So this is one of the typical pond. So this one JDI initiated from scratch in Cambodia. Cambodia was a very difficult country. Nobody willing to go during 2020. But we agree with the Prime Minister to develop pond for the young people. So this is about 360 hectares. Let's go. Outskirts of Phnom Penh. JDI involved from beginning, done clearance and detailed study and implementation. Actually, I was the CEO for 5 years until this project will take off. Now we have 120,000 people working here. And even some company are high-tech. And also many other industries. The next one is agro SEZ. This I think more relevant, most relevant to the Papua New Guinea. So this one typical is the agriculture SEZ. We have the production of product like sugarcane, or maybe the cassava. Could be palm oil is also similar category. And we have certain area, and we need a processing factory. Then I think that this can create employment for rural area. So maybe not only sugarcane, could be palm oil, could be cassava, could be cocoa, coffee is also maybe organized. So this is the one I think most suitable for the your country. Next one is the forestry. Forestry is also, you have a huge millions and millions of hectares. And not sustainable forests are developed yet. So nowadays we need to creating the sustainable forest and harvest the lumber and maybe put into the processing, then you can able to export. So this is one of the things we have to do in this country. And these are some of examples. This is the Prime Minister was talking about Gabon Special Economic Zone. It's about 95 factories invited. They're poor. They're doing everything for the wood processing. Probably employing 50,000 large scale. Okay. So next one is the free trade zone. The free trade zone is next to the port. And of course, we are not best place for the logistics center yet, but I think there's still some possibilities. So this free trade zone, the normally logistics centers, like at Dubai, Singapore is one of them, and Panama, and there may be several of them. Even small scale, you might have this in the Port of Moresby and the And another one possibility is tourism. Tourism zone or tourism SEZ. I think most successful one in Cancun in Mexico. This is a plan from beginning. So nicely beaches around. So it's a plan as a SEZ, and they become famous the destinations. I think Bali is a basic at this time. Bali used to be not very hygiene places. The World Bank came, put the master plan and the good road, and also providing clean water, and put the waste management system. So people who go to Bali used to get the stomach ache, early stage. But after this, people don't get stomach problem. And of course, improve the international airport. Now Bali becoming one of the destination, global destination. So the tourism could be, we find very beautiful beaches, and those resources can be taken into this tourism. Also the Langkawi Island in Malaysia is also tourism SEZ. It's a whole island, not big, but converted to the tourism SEZ. So those things may be, I think, feasible and possible in these countries. Now, I'd like to share that our experience in the developing country for the SEZ in the past 40 years. So during 1990s, most of the countries interested for export and processing zone. They thought that they can earn foreign currency. But some limited success, because not so many developers are just interested on export. Actually, we find that when you make that it's better to have a big number of birds who can be export-oriented or domestic-oriented. So we put together. So nowadays, almost all countries have this system. Of course, China started this SEZ in four occasions, early 1980s, and I think many people question what in the hell that the communist regime can attract investors. But I think strong political will of the communist leader, Deng Xiaoping, he succeeded. He said, I don't care the cat with the black, white ears. As long as the cat's mouse is a good mouse. This philosophy really made the many migrating birds comfortable. Also very strong the promotion. He himself come to Japan, asking the president of Panasonic, the president of the Nippon Steel, to beg them to invest in China. And they did so. So this kind of aggressive, positive promotion is very, very important. So I would like Mr. Maru and another maybe leader can do that. And so 1980s, many things happened. The most important thing happened in the 1980s is the Praga Agreement, 1985. So G7 get together in the Praga Hotel in New York. And that time, Japan was really running trade surplus, $200 billion a year after year. The US is a deficit, about the same amount or even less. So United States said, okay, we're going to change the rule. So Praga Agreement actually reshaped the exchange rate. So Japan was particularly hit. So Japanese yen used to be 240 yen to $1. Within a short time, Japanese yen appreciated 3 times. So $80 to $1. So that means producer in Japan, the cost of production, even Toyota had a difficult time to make profit because the cost of it gone up 3 times. How you can adjust? So I call it migrating season started. By thousands Japanese companies start moving to south. Of course, some go to China in large number, and also Thailand, India. So the problem was not enough pond for the birds. So the Japanese Chamber of Commerce, Keidanren, we discussed the thousands of Japanese companies want shifting factory in the low-cost developing countries. But no place to go, no pond. So I visited Thailand first, talked to the NACDB, Prime Minister, Dr. Snow. So we have idea to bring in thousands of investors in Thailand, creating millions of employment. But we need the pond. And I asked that the IEAT, this is the government agency responsible to develop industrial park. But they told us developing one industrial park will take 5 to 7 years because they have to do the process step by step. So this takes too much time, I told them. We have to finish in 1 year. Otherwise, all the birds crying around Bangkok, they never come back. So my proposal was, why don't we privatize? The private sector can take risk, they purchase the land, develop. And for management, private sector do much better than government itself. That we find. So, but IAT law said, no, private sector cannot develop. It's a monopoly by government. Almost all the countries that time, the government is a monopolized development of industrial park or SEZ, EPZ. But I think we cannot wait 5, 7 years. So finally that we met the Prime Minister and he said, we have to change the law. So I made a proposal and presented to the Parliament. Luckily enough, we got the approval 3 weeks. So we started the first private-led industrial park 1987. We designed and lay out 140 hectares of Lakaban Industrial Park. And amazingly that we were able to solve this 140 hectares in a matter of 6 months because I see so many birds flying above, so they'll come down. So people watching, then what happened? Almost 10 private-led industrial parks started in Thailand. Then now Thailand have almost 100 economic zones, some of it very big. 1,000 hectares, Toyota City is 3,000 hectares industrial park. So now that Thailand become Detroit of Asia, maybe dozen automaker assemble it, and also supporting all the component industry. Then we end up 5,000 to 10,000 factory operation there. So maybe we can show you the numbers next. So this is the number of SEZ, also number of countries adopted. 1970, only 29, and 79 is industrial park SEZ. Now, 2018, 5,400 SEZ in operation. 147 countries. You can see this number jump every 5 years. So I was watching this maybe progress. And also another important incident for the SEZ was 1989. So we are working in the Shenzhen to develop port and industrial park. And we got approval, finished the feasibility study. We are ready to go by C-To company willing to do this. But 1989, Tiananmen Square incident happened. So this maybe Tiananmen Square incident stopped everything. No pond development, and also the investment dropped very rapidly. So migrating birds have to shift to the China to the ASEAN. So we already started in Thailand, and after Thailand, Mahathir of the Malaysia asking me to come to Malaysia and do the same thing. We did it in 1988. And also the president of Aquino-san in Philippines also asking me to do the same thing. So we started Dasmariñas economic zone, Batangas economic zone, about 5 sectors. So we are already starting Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines. But the number of the pond is not enough because China, we cannot accommodate them. So we discussed with the Chamber of Commerce again, what we're going to do. Still thousands of birds won't fly, but not enough pond in Asia. So I told them, why don't we go to Indonesia? Of course, Indonesia at that time, late 80s, infrastructure is very poor. Power is not available much. Power will cut off quite often, and the transparency is not there. So many companies say, oh, Indonesia is a difficult place for the big factories. But anyway, talk to the Prime Minister, also the Minister of Industry, and particularly Tongki Aribobo. He was Deputy Minister of Industry. He was very enthusiastic about our proposal. He was also very close to the President Suharto. So I told that Tongki Aribobo, we need 2 or 3 presidential decree to get the project moving. The one thing that how to acquire land. Acquiring land in the big scale is very, very difficult because very high density from the Java island. So we need about commercial base, we need 500 hectares. Even 1,000 hectares is better because this economy zone is economy to scale. So luckily that we got the presidential decree, 3 of them, including this land acquisition program. So we are able to acquire initially 500 hectares Egypt Industrial Park by Sumitomo Group, and the MM21 Marubeni Group, another 1,000. So all together in the Bukashi and the Chikaran area, we have a 7, 8 large-scale pond. Now you can see, you go to Indonesia, also Bukashi Chikaran corridor is the most prosperous and the industrial corridor. Okay, we have to hurry up. So that maybe you could see that the number of SEZ jump every 5 years. So that's the story of this. Also, 1989, another incident happened. The socialist system collapsed. So this is really also accelerated because former Soviet, the colonies, has to change to market economy and require the port to creating jobs. So Vietnam is one of them, and also the Poland and Hungary and Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, those former socialist countries joined to developing economic zone after 1989. So that really changed the whole the migrating bird system. Next one. Yeah. However, that I have to caution you that just building a pond alone cannot guarantee the bird to come, because the bird is a very sensitive animals. We have to provide A to Z. All the infrastructure has to be there. Legal system has to protect, and also the one day-to-day operation for the one-stop service. Another one I find most important system is the troubleshooting mechanism, because this type of project, you'll find all kinds of trouble one after another. But we have to be able to shooting down the trouble. So if we can do this kind of system, you can be able to bring the bird. So you can see here statistic, 22% is heavily underutilized. Some of them use the pond, but no birds. So I would invite you to the Mongolia and the ABB. So Mongolia not able to attract the birds. So other countries also same thing happened. So we need checking that how the birds behave and what's the preference of the birds. We have to know what the birds they want. So we have to provide them. It's a service industry, basically. So I think the successful country in Asia. I think we've worked every ASEAN country, so Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar. All those countries, we introduced this concept, and so far all the ASEAN countries succeeded. Shifting from the LDC status to the middle-income country, like Thailand already higher middle-income countries. Per capita is almost $7,000. From used to be only 400, 1,500. Like maybe Cambodia used to be only less than 300 per capita. Now close to 2,000. So creating employment, the economy grow much faster than otherwise. Then you can growth of the economy can double digit. So we are working on the Bangladesh for 10 years under the World Bank assistance. I think Bangladesh is moving very well. I think we think after this maybe COVID-19, I think they can move back to the 10% annual growth, and that can expect. So impact of the SEZ program. So you can see more pond, more birds, more investment, more job, and the economy also grow faster than otherwise. So Asia was the most successful one. And I call that the success of the SEZ development, Thailand, South Malaysia, Vietnam, Myanmar, Cambodia, that I mentioned already. Yeah. And we call that the Asian Express to the Tiger economy. Now we call that the success country, we call the Tiger economy. Used to be the Taiwan, Korea, but now other ASEAN becoming Tiger economies. Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, all of them. So Asian Express bus using this SEZ concept, it worked. So I think why not for the PNG that I'd like to tell you. And the successful country, okay, those countries. Now I give you a little bit the specific example of the success story. I think we started Thailand, but I think the most important thing happened is the privatization of the SEZ development. Because basically birds, migrating birds is a private sector. And we can develop and operate by private sector. They understand the nature of the birds and able to support them. So big things change. Of course, I mentioned that the private SEZ industrial park, 1987, changed the whole country progress. We used to have only just 5 industrial park, 1986. Then able to increase to 100 because of privatization. Because after 1986, almost all of the industrial park is done by private. And the private sector can take care of the private investor birds well. So I think the combination of the government involvement and the private is very much key. So of course, private sector cannot do everything. Connectivity has to be done by public. So the combination is very important. So that's what we call the private-public partnership, PPP. So how you want to mix this PPP is very important. Every country has to have a different situation, different package. Another quick way that the country developed is Vietnam. Because Vietnam was a socialist country, and the Vietnam War destroyed all infrastructure. So we are there in 1992. Going from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City took us 3 days because all the bridges are destroyed that time. And power is not there. But I think there's strong will there. So we made the master plan 1992 from north to south and central. Particularly south was much more vibrant because it used to be under market economy. So 1993 started. Now industrial park will become 185 now. Maybe by now, maybe 200. So Vietnam has really progressed faster than even Thailand. So now they are already shifting from labor-intensive industry to the more value-add high-tech industry. They're manufacturing the Samsung, the smartphone, and also Intel have integrated, IC chip production there, and many related industry going there. Also, even maybe faster, shifting from China. So if you have this kind of strategy, you can change within 10, 20 years. The next one is in Bangladesh. So Bangladesh was, we were working only 10 years. We were invited by the World Bank to support the industrial park. They call the economic zone. So we have people from BESA, maybe they can give you more detail. But anyway, we got maybe master plan process by World Bank. So land allocation, land acquisition is very difficult because population is 16.5 million, much smaller territory than here. 160 million. So density is very high. And the land for the industrial park is very difficult. But I asked that Prime Minister Hashina-san, without land, nothing we can do. No pond, no bird. So Hashina-san agreed to go ahead to acquire 400 hectares outskirts of the Dhaka, location called the Alai Hadas. And we asked the JICA to help them. And now we are operation, I think last month, Prime Minister Hashina-san visited with delegation and had maybe promotion seminar. The Japanese company enthusiastic. I think we had already half filled. I'm expecting rest of the half will be filled up in this year. So we had another 200 hectares next to it. So maybe Sumitomo will going to develop another 200. So this is creating one of a very big impact. So we are looking at the biggest industrial city in Minesharai. It's at 10,000 hectares. Used to be wasteland. And the World Bank said, oh, this place we cannot use. But I told them, we can. So we put a dike around wasteland. Now we have a 10,000 hectare industrial corridor in the Bukashi area. Not Bukashi, but Minesharai area, I'm sorry. So that happened. And Prime Minister Hashina-san is determined. So I told that we can creating 10 million jobs for Bangladesh, developing 100 economic zones. So she's moving on that direction, and I think this can be achieved. And one of the biggest bottleneck is the land. So we are also looking for another places for the pond, and this can be done with a strong political will and process. The next one is much more relevant to the Papua New Guinea, is Cambodia. So we are invited by Prime Minister Hussein back in 1987, and no employment available, no investment. Only Pol Pot civil war destroyed all the infrastructure. Also killed 2 million people. So shortage of manpower also, and many empty land. So we have to put empty land for the production. So we had the agricultural SEZ program, plus tourism and the manufacturing. So we started developing by 2006. The first project I mentioned before, Phnom Penh Special Economic Zone. We acquire land. We are the partner, JDA the partner of the local developers, and we built 365 SEZ, and full of now 120,000 people working, and we have 23 SEZ in the whole country. So more than my expectation. I promised the Prime Minister to creating 500,000 jobs, but actually we passed that. So Prime Minister asking me double to 1 million. The population is only 12 million, something like that. Maybe similar to the PNG. So anyway, he gave me that medal twice because of my contribution to the creation of employment. Another thing I think are very important for the PNG is the agricultural season. So used to be empty space for the forest and some land, the millions of hectares. So I put this into the SEZ agricultural process. We're going to give that next picture video. So this is that agricultural SEZ, I think about 1 million hectares. Because keeping land empty, no production, nothing, wasting. So I told the Prime Minister, we can't bring investor and concession them. So some of them will be 1,000, 5,000, even 20, 30,000 concession. So private sector come in, invested, producing sugar, producing cassava, cashew nut. I think most important one is the cassava. So cassava production used to be nothing year 2000. Reached 10 million by 2010. By 2020, 14 million tons of cassava grow and exported for the biofuel and the starch and for the animal feed. They're exporting 14 million tons. That's the things we can do the same thing here. The cassava is highly demanded because of can be converted to the animal feed initially and the bioethanol, then to the bio and starch. So next one, maybe last one, I can go on 30, but too much for. So we are asked by the World Bank to transfer our success story to the Africa. So we selected Tanzania is the one. So I met the President Mkapa, and we agreed to develop SEZ in Africa. And there, of course, the agricultural is the main, and forestry, and a little bit of tourism. And for the manufacturing, it's not very strong there, but we provided the one in the capital and one in Kilimanjaro. And Kilimanjaro is a very interesting project. So Kilimanjaro SEZ, we asked the Sumitomo Chemical to bring the factory from China to the Tanzania because Sumitomo Chemical producing malaria prevention net. So 2 million people in Africa die from malaria, mostly young and babies. So we had maybe economic forum in Davos, 2005, and I heard the one of subject was how to reduce people dying 2 million in Africa. So one of the questions is that produce more malaria prevention net from Africa in Africa because demand for the net is 99% in Africa. So why don't we shift production to the Africa? So in the economic forum, and I sent the President Mukapa to explain 2 million people dying in Africa and beg that bring that the factory to the Africa because consumption 90% net is Africa. So then I think at that time, Mrs. Sharon, the actress, and Bono, the rock singer, they are very much interested in helping the malaria cause. And on the meeting, and those 2 people were so enthusiastic, let's try this, reducing the people dying 2 million to half. And this may be malaria prevention net is very effective. And was so excited also they have to do something. So we invited him to Tanzania, met the president. Then actually, initially it was difficult because there's no power, very difficult. But anyway, we went, developed this. So now I think the success of factoring as Asian countries, including China, up to India, I think one of the things I find is particularly ASEAN countries competing each other. If they hear something good thing, they're going to take this idea immediately. So I'm going around Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, and we change that policy very quickly. This is a wonderful way they succeeded. And also private sector-led SEZ I mentioned, 1986, really revolutionized the process of development and operation. Another thing, they know that the SEZ will attract investment. They see physically, and the birds coming and creating jobs. So they're willing to innovate, changing the policies, even the difficult policies, in terms of land acquisition. And also we introduced the one-stop service. Also that we mentioned that the troubleshooting mechanism, all those things put in them. They competing each other, they improve every year. So the ASEAN countries are one of the best place for all the management of SEZ, development SEZ, mostly managed by private sector. So this is one of the reasons they succeeded. So also I came up with 10 commandments for them to follow, and they diligently do that, and they will improve upon. So this is, I think, the reason why. On the other hand, some countries not succeeded. But it's very obvious, like Myanmar, North Korea, now the Russia, Far East. We build up the SEZ in those countries, but now because of dictatorship and economic sanction, so forth, so also political instability, no political will, no legal system, and no function of SEZ. For that reason, many birds went there but left, living now. Now that maybe regarding history of PNG, I think Mr. Maru mentioned that the whole program started 30 years ago. Unfortunately, none of them really able to successfully done. So maybe one of things, industrial center concept, Free Trade Zone Act by 2000, Pacific Marine Industrial Zone, PMIZ, is not materialized yet. And Konibado Petroleum Park, again, big idea, but not really materialized. So reason for this, why? So we discussed and say no one knew what the SEZ was and also what must be done to succeed. That's missing. Also no proper regulated framework, no SEZ Act, also no institution, and of course no master plan for the SEZ to follow. Of course no 10 commandments to follow. So those are all missing. So now on, we have to change to provide all those things. were missing. So energy economy trend, and of course up to now, most successful one is the resource sector. Minerals and LNG gases, they produce 30% of GDP, 80% of the export. But the remaining largest people working in agriculture, forestry, other things, the employment is very limited here, and the income is also low. So I think we need to change emphasis. You have to create a job. That means you have to bring the birds. We have to develop pond suitable for the Papua New Guinea. So a couple things we can do. I think just before we mentioned the fish, also fish catching and processing here has to be proceeded. Also another thing that the wood processing at the moment 3 million ton cubic meter would be exported, no processing here. All other countries in the world already stopped this exporting rock and the processing at home, creating jobs. So this is another specific policy necessary here to bring in employment. So I think Bangladesh, I'm mixing all because the PNG is really need to do. I go through maybe strengths and weakness of PNG. Of course, the difficulty here, of course, of doing business 120 is still very low. We need to improve, but I think improving whole country takes 1 generation. That's the reason SEZ to be adopted. Starting 2, 3, 4, immediately we can improve. Then I think bring the birds. And also the infrastructure is very still poor. Power, road, and another infrastructure. So also maybe difficulty, I think the most important one I mentioned again, difficulty to consolidating land. Because the tribal land, we need the concession discussion from maybe hundreds of tribes. But I think with that land, nothing will happen. So we need to ask the tribal leader, among all this orchestration, can play very key role. And sitting on the land, nothing will happen forever. So think about your children, your grandchildren. We can't create jobs in this country, bringing in the birds. Also now that headed by Minister Maru, we are taking a lot of aggressive actions. Now regarding the potential industry, I'm going through half year, all the provinces. I think palm oil, there's still high demand. Cassava, not much development. I think also huge demand for export. Sugar, you're importing sugar, so you need to be production increase at least domestic demand, plus maybe export. And the rice, the people in here, Papua New Guinea, people like rice compared to the potatoes and the sweet potato and taros. So demand will be continue to increase. We're expecting 500,000 ton consumption, then soon 1 million ton consumption. You cannot import this forever. And land available, water available, signs here. So we're actually pushing rice production, not all day cultivation, but we have all modern machines, planting machine, harvesting machine. You can modernize the rice production here. Maybe we can targeting 1 million ton by 2015. We have looked at the many places, the several places look suitable, land available, no housing there, water there, and only little bit access road and the power. That's all we need. And also wood chip, paper, pulp. This is also highly demanded in the world. And because we cannot produce paper by chemically. Must be natural fibers. And here, according to the paper company, they can grow the trees very fast than any other place in the world. And this can be sustainable forest, supplying the paper and the pulp globally. And also maybe processing lumber, I will mention, this should be done, must be done. And also the integrated livestock, chicken, pig, cattle. So far, this country cannot produce animal feed, even though millions of hectares are available. So we have to grow maize, soybeans, sorghum to make that animal feed. Also cassava is also animal feed. So integrate livestock is a very, very important industry. At the moment we are importing chicken and beef, all those things. We don't have to export, but at least self-sufficiency within maybe 10, 15 years. So that can target. And also fish processing, as already you saw the presentation, this direction moving on. And also manufacturing, once that the processing industry moving, raw material coming, I'm sure that the manufacturing will start more vigorously. So we need a couple manufacturing base point. Here, maybe Port Harcourt, maybe here, or maybe another place. So those things I think are very much potential. We have to be realistic. I cannot bring the high-tech industry immediately, but it can be starting with the agriculture, fishery, and forestry. Those. Okay, next one. This is the candidate of the SEZ that we're going to discuss one by one tomorrow. And what's the PNG do to be successful? So we mentioned 10 of them. So it's already started. The first one, review the SEZ Act and modify suitable to the current situation. And also number 2, SEZ policy. The policy is necessary, so now drafting those maybe policies, soon maybe implemented. And third one, master plan that we're working on. And fourth one, building capacity of BT and SEZ. So those two agencies are very important. And we need to capacity development program. And also I mentioned time. We need to build one-stop service, troubleshooting mechanism, because those are essential for the making the product safe and operation. 7, select commandment, recommendation, we mature these things. So we are now selecting about 4 or 5 candidates, and this is going to be implemented after final check, and we have to this time successfully implement with all those measures taking place. Also, medium long term, land reform necessary to provide necessary land for the SEZ, because every SEZ we are going to do win a piece of land. Agriculture, forestry big, industry not so big, but still everything we're going to do, the tribal leader has to understand, regional governor also understand. So we need an orchestration. It's a very key member of orchestra. Also, we need a huge amount of the money, financing. This has to be provided. Also, the infrastructure is still poor. We have to focus in the SEZ area. Focus on 4 or 5. You can put the necessary infrastructure A to Z. A matter of just 1-2 years. Then I think the pond can be operational. I also maybe continuously review the SEZ program, because situation changing day to day. So every 5 years probably we need a review and update. The next one I think I make a very short, but I'm talking about 10 commandments. This is adjusted to the PNG environment. So I put the top, normally I put the political will, but consolidation of SEZ land, because it's more difficult in this country. But without the land, nothing will happen. So sitting on the land, however, nothing happened. You think about their children and grandchildren. This is necessary. Second one, market-driven. Everything under market economy. You got to find whatever you produce, cassava, palm oil, and this rice, where the markets are. So those things are very, very important. And thirdly, political will. We have, as been hearing from the Prime Minister yesterday, and also the Mr. Maru. Political will, yes, very strong. This is one of very important requirement. And also A to Z, particularly infrastructure, has to be there, everything A to Z. Otherwise, we cannot operate. Try to change whole infrastructure, the whole country, it's not possible. But if you can select 4 or 5, you can do this. All other countries have done the same thing. When I was in Indonesia, 1989, no power. Power there, but time cut off. So I had to develop IPP project in Bekasi, and we have done it. And law and order is also very important, because the birds are very afraid of this. So we have to keep them in their state. And the troubleshooting community, one-stop services, and the flexible every 5-year review. And the competent authority, we need a capacity building. And also the transparency is very important, particularly for this SEZ zone first, eventually for the whole country. But I think this is politically feasible. Only maybe we're starting experimentation in those 4 or 5. It's possible. I'm sure that you get the full support from the Parliament and the Prime Minister or Minister. So anyway, PNC should try SEZ as a game changer. So past 30 years, not doing so well, but this time, you should determine to get success for the implementation. And if you follow this 10 commandments on those things we mentioned here, I think you can succeed. I cannot guarantee 100%, but 99%, I think you can, because all other countries have done it. Why not for the PNG? So anyway, your requirement, creating employment, is the most important task of the government. So you have to recognize this is the things this country needs. If you don't leave, so many young people end up with no jobs, no futures. So I think if you get serious enough, from the Prime Minister down to the tribal leader, we can do this. So we need organized orchestra to play theme. We're going to creating 1.6 million by 2050. This is the target. You should keep it, and you can do that. So anyway, I think I better stop here, and not much time left, but if you have any question, we can take it.